So in this video, what we're going to be having a look at is finding information in non-fiction texts. So as part of Functional Skills English, you won't be reading any fiction, no stories. They are all transactional pieces of writing, pieces that were written for a purpose other than to entertain. So it's usually because we are giving somebody guidance, information, we are trying to persuade. There are lots of different reasons why we write these pieces, but for functional English, we rarely look at the ones that are entertaining, that are stories. So we're asked in the reading exams, both at level 1 and level 2, to be able to identify information. They essentially want us to read something and find an answer. The key here is to turn off all of our outside knowledge about the world, because if we are being asked a question and we know the answer, or we think we know the answer, we write it down. What the exam board are looking for is not our previous knowledge of this situation or the subject. What they want us to do is to read the question and find the answer in the document they have given us. And they usually want the precise wording or quote from the text. So we have to turn off our common sense. So if, for example, there was an exam question that said, read this piece of text all about dogs, and then tell me, what is the writer's favourite type of dogs? And I go, oh, well, my favourite type of dog. It's not what it's asking. It doesn't want anything from outside of that text that you are given. So we focus on that, and I'm going to show you a way, 2 ways, in fact, to work through and find those key bits of information. So we are going to have a go at locating explicit information, so obvious information, by skimming and scanning texts. And the piece that we're going to be using as our example is this. So it's an example of a travel article, and it's called The Amazon Rainforest. And it says, the Amazon rainforest is the largest tropical rainforest in the world. It covers parts of 9 countries in South America, including Brazil, Peru, and Colombia. The rainforest is home to millions of plant and animal species. Why the Amazon is important. The Amazon helps regulate the Earth's climate by absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. It also produces around 20% of the world's oxygen. Many medicines are made from plants found in the rainforest. Threats to the Amazon. Deforestation is one of the biggest threats to the Amazon rainforest. Trees are cut down to make space for farming, roads, and buildings. Climate change has also increased the number of droughts and wildfires in the region. Okay, so what would happen next is, if it was the real life reading exam, we would click next and we would be given a question asking us to find some information from this text. Okay. What we're going to do is have a look at skimming and scanning to work out which of these techniques we should use depending on what kind of information we are looking for. So, skimming. Skimming is to get the main idea of a text without reading every word. So usually what I do is you look at headings, you look at subheadings, so that you can understand not only the topic, the subject as a whole, but then the more specific things that are being written about. You could read the first sentence of each paragraph, because that often gives you a very good idea of the further detail that's going to be given. You can look at images, captions, bullet points or charts, any visual clue. Ignore small details, because for this, we're looking at the greater meaning, the meaning of the document as a whole, not looking for specific parts of information. So we consider it as looking almost like bird's eye view. You are looking down upon something and understanding generally the document without reading every word. An example. You open a page about the Amazon rainforest, the things that we'd be looking at. So the headings on this piece that we read through said, why the Amazon is important. Threats to the Amazon. Okay, so we know just from reading those titles that the text is going to be talking about the benefits of the Amazon, why it's important, and also the dangers, because it mentions the threats that are apparent to the Amazon as well. So that's how we would sort of skim through that text. It's looking almost for an overview of what the document is about. If, however, we're scanning, it's not the opposite, but it's definitely the second side of the coin. So if we're looking for the general idea of a text without looking in detail on one side, on the other, for scanning, we want to be looking for specific detail. So scanning is to find specific information quickly, things like a fact, a date, a number, or a name. So how do we do that? We look for the keywords in our question, and then you move your eyes quickly over the text to look for those exact key words. Stop only when you find that particular piece of information the question is looking for. Ignore everything else because you don't need every word. So I always think about it as, for example, if we go back to the piece on the Amazon, and the question is asking for statistics or facts, then I know I'm looking for a number. So I don't read every word again. I look for a number. And in that case, I find it in that middle paragraph. If, for example, the question asks me to find a person's name or the name of a place, I'm looking for capital letters because people's names and places are proper nouns, so they will always have a capital letter. So again, I'm not looking for specific, I'm not reading every single word, just looking for capital letters because they're bigger. They should be more obvious to my eyes. So depending on what you're looking for, here we go, nice example. The question you're given, let's say it says, how much oxygen does the Amazon produce? If it says how much, it means we're looking for a number. The key word in the question is oxygen. So if we read through the document and we find the word oxygen and it's got a number next to it and we read it, it makes sense, we're happy with it. Bingo, there's the answer to our question. So, as a bit of a test, now I've said this before in a couple of classes, when I share the PowerPoints with you, they will always have some questions, so that should you want to have a go at these, please feel free. And all of the questions that I've got, they start simply. The first three are what I would consider simple. The middle three are more like medium questions, and the last three I suspect would be much harder questions. So, for example, if for the first one, it just says, what is the Amazon rainforest? We don't want to know what you think the Amazon rainforest is. We want you to look at the text and say, the Amazon rainforest is the largest tropical rainforest in the world. That's it. It's asking you, find this information in the text. If we look at the second question on here, name one country the Amazon rainforest covers. Again, if you know that from your own knowledge, great. But that's not what it's asking. It's asking you to name either Brazil, Peru, or Colombia. And you literally, in the reading exam, there are no marks for spelling, punctuation, and grammar. They will often, for example, with this question about the countries, they only, if it just says name one country, just name any one of those three. That's it. And it doesn't matter, but none of them would get more marks than the other. Brazil would get you 1 mark, Peru would get you 1 mark, Colombia would get you 1 mark. Or if you wrote all three of them, you would still only get 1 mark because it's only asked for one answer. So you don't need to write it in long sentences or anything like that. It's literally just quick little where, here. That's it. What is the rainforest home to? Again, so if we go back to it, the key word in that question is the word home. So if we look at the third sentence at the end of that first paragraph, just a second, we've got the word home. That's a bit of a giveaway, isn't it? So it says the rainforest is home to millions of plant and animal species. So for your answer for that, you would literally just write millions of plants and animal species. So can you see how this is going? You don't need to write great long answers. You don't need to do big sentences or paragraphs. There's no analysis, there's no opinion. It is entirely, can you read this and find the information? And in finding that information, you can do it those two ways. Look at the overview of what the document is about as a whole, or look for the specific detail by concentrating on those key words. So things like the word home, I would, for the one about the countries, I'd be looking for the capital letters. If it asks me anything about numerical data or facts or statistics, I'm looking for the numbers there as well. So if we keep going through these questions, so the fourth one says, how does the Amazon help regulate the Earth's climate? Okay, so if we have a look at this where it says why it's important, let me just change this back to yellow, absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Now, usually the exam board will give in their answer booklets, in their mark schemes, a couple of examples of like answers that they would accept as being correct. So if we're using the words perfectly from the text, then the chances are it's going to be the first one that the exam board suggests as being correct. If you reword things, but it means the same thing, then the exam board will likely accept those answers as long as the meaning is synonymous, as long as the two words that you're writing mean the same thing. So let's keep going through these questions. I quite enjoy them. The next one says, how much of the world's oxygen does the Amazon produce? Okay, so we saw that one. Because it has the numbers in it, it's the middle sentence, around 20%. Okay, next question. Oh, let's have a look. Give one example of how plants in the rainforest are used. Okay, if we go back, a lot of these questions are going to be in the order that you read the text as well. So if you can see, the first questions are based at the start of the text, and then they go all the way through. Doesn't necessarily mean that the answers are going to be in that order, but the exam board do like to be able to show you an example of, like in this case, how to structure an article. For all the lessons that we were doing last week on the writing exams, this is a lovely example. We've got a headline at the top. We've got subheadings telling you, and a few lines in each one, just telling you, the first one tells you overall the subject, the Amazon, and then we have the specific paragraphs underneath about those specific subjects they're talking about. So the next one, it said, what can be made from plants? The last sentence on here says many medicines are made from plants found in the rainforest. Okay, so you could just put many medicines and that's it. Now, we said it starts to get harder after that. The last three questions. What is the cause of deforestation in the Amazon? Okay, so it says here, deforestation is one of the biggest threats to the Amazon. Trees are cut down to make space for farming, roads, and buildings. So the reason, it said the reason for deforestation, didn't it? Yes. What is the cause of deforestation? So the cause is that trees are cut down for either farming, roads, or buildings. Okay. So let's have a look at the last two questions. Okay, I like this one. Name two threats to the Amazon rainforest. If this was a real question in your real exam, the word two would be in bold because they want you to remember that. They want you to notice it, and they want to make sure that you are giving two answers. So two threats to the Amazon rainforest. Okay, so I think deforestation is definitely going to be one of them because it is mentioned in the paragraph that is all about threats to the Amazon. And after that, it also mentions climate change because that's increased the number of droughts and wildfires in the region. So for that answer, for number 1, I would say deforestation. And for number 2, I would say climate change. Okay, we look at this last question. Find and copy the word that tells you climate change has made droughts and wildfires more common. Okay. I am going to use a bit of my own common sense on this. Something that is made more common, more frequent, has increased. Okay, these are all similar terms for the same thing. That's the kind of thing that I'm looking for. Climate change has also increased the number of droughts and wildfires. So what specific word are we looking for? We are looking for the word increased. So that's an example of the types of questions that you could be asked in the exam. So a lot of them are just asking you to specifically look for bits of information in order to answer the question. Before we answer any of them, we need to be thinking about exactly as I was explaining as I was doing, what keyword should I be scanning for? Or am I looking for numbers or capital letters? Is there a specific heading that is going to help me? And do I need a fact, a number, or an example? And again, just in case any of you wanted to complete any of those questions yourself in your own time, then I did put the answers on this last slide, just in case. So, how do we find information quickly? We either skim or we scan. I do it very often when if I'm in a bookshop and I'm buying a book, the first thing I'll do is I will open it randomly and I will skim a little bit and just look for a general idea of what is their writing like, what's the story like, is it exciting? I might open a news article and just scan it, see if there are see sort of what the general opinion towards that news story is before I decide whether or not I want to read in detail. And then lastly, the scanning. Sorry, the scanning. It's finding, it's zooming in and focusing on those individual, those really specific pieces of information that you're looking for. So if we're looking for numbers, they can be relatively easy to spot. If we're looking for names of people or places or countries, then we can look for things like capital letters. If it says, what question was asked, then we look for a question mark. We can use all of these different clues to help us find the information in the text. Now, just going to stop sharing the PowerPoint briefly. And now, although we are going to be having a look at one of these exams in the lesson on Thursday this week, we're going to be looking at the full exam. We are just now going to open up one of the sample materials from the exam board. This is a level 2 reading exam in the new style from the exam board. Obviously, if this was your real exam, the first thing that you would be doing is checking that all that information is correct and that you are going to be abiding by their rules. So this is very similar to how it opens on the web app when you sit your exams. Now we're just going to have a quick look at the first text, which is in these sections. Now, at level 2, unless it's changed massively since I last saw it, you have 3 texts to look at. And in the level 1 exams, you just have 2 texts. You can see your progress with the little blue bar across the left-hand side. And if we just go straight to section 1, so right at the very beginning, we click on next, the document that we're going to be reading comes up here. Now, unfortunately, because at the moment this is sort of in beta testing, so I understand that if you guys may struggle to read this screen, but this is a website that's advertising a new bus travel app. And look at the question here. It says, give one way that the text says, digital tickets benefit the environment. So I would be thinking about the keyword here being environment. So I'm going to be looking through that text and thinking, right, okay, I'm looking for the word environment, anything that mentions sort of the atmosphere or litter or any of those sort of keywords, buzzwords to do with the environment. If we have a look at the next question, again, just to give you an example. See, I said if it asks you to give 2 examples of anything, it will always be in bold, and you are usually given 2 boxes, one to write the first one in and one to write the second one in. It says give 2 quotations that suggest the app will save passengers time. These are your key words. Anything to do with saving time. So again, you would be scanning through that app and looking and finding any of those specific words that will help you find your quotations. Again, this one says, according to this text, who should you contact about a disabled person's pass? Now, I know where the answer is in this one, so I can show you very quickly. Again, I apologise that it's so small. It is screen on screen at the moment, but at the very bottom of this document, there is a little footnote. And that's a little star with some added extra information. And it says, at this time, you cannot buy a disabled person's bus pass using the app, and we recommend contacting your local council. So if we've read that document and we've looked for the keywords, so in this case, we're looking for any kind of disabled person's bus pass. So these are the kinds of questions that you will be asked. As I say, the main differences between level 1 and level 2, the length of the articles you'll be reading are slightly longer in level 2. The number of questions you have ever so slightly more in level 2. And in both levels, you do not have to do any great level of analysis or look at this one. It says, what is implied by the phrase, it takes the hassle out of public transport. So another word for hassle could be stress. And if we're taking the stress out of something, we would essentially write, it makes it easier, or it makes transport easier, or getting public transport. Again, the exam board will allow lots of different suggestions of how you've written it, as long as they all mean the same thing. So they were the different ways of looking at skimming and scanning through the text, as well as giving you a bit of an example of how that works on the live exams as well. So let me just stop recording.